You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your PMP certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Mentoring stakeholders is about developing their capacity to make better decisions that support project delivery. Unlike coaching, which focuses on improving performance within a role, or training, which delivers structured knowledge, mentoring emphasizes transferring patterns of thinking, judgment, and decision-making. The project manager acts as a trusted guide, not simply a conveyor of facts. The outcomes of this task include faster approvals, fewer escalations, smoother adoption, and greater long-term value. Mentoring builds maturity in stakeholders so they can engage confidently and responsibly. On the PMP exam, this theme often hides in stems where a sponsor requests shortcuts or a product owner seems unsure about ordering backlog items. The correct approach usually involves guidance, not compliance. Effective mentoring produces tangible results. Sponsors who understand governance avoid creating pressure for risky shortcuts. Product owners who grasp acceptance criteria write clearer backlog items, reducing disputes later. Subject matter experts who internalize decision frameworks make more consistent contributions. The project manager's role is not to dictate decisions but to share structured ways of thinking so stakeholders can reach sound conclusions independently. Mentoring accelerates approvals because stakeholders better understand implications. It reduces escalations because disagreements can be handled at the right level. On the exam, correct answers reflect this enabling posture rather than doing the stakeholders' work directly. The stance of the project manager in mentoring is one of respect and neutrality. Mentoring does not mean taking over or undermining accountability. Instead, the project manager models behaviors, explains rationale, and gradually withdraws as stakeholders gain confidence. This transfer of judgment supports organizational resilience. When project managers leave, the stakeholders they mentored continue applying better practices. PMI embeds mentoring in the people domain because sustainable delivery depends not only on teams, but also on capable sponsors, product owners, and user representatives. The exam emphasizes that mentoring is about enabling independence, not creating dependence. The first step in mentoring is identifying who to mentor. Relevant stakeholders include sponsors, product owners, subject matter experts, user champions, and vendor leads. Each plays a role in shaping outcomes, and mentoring them strengthens decision quality. Selection should be based on leverage and risk exposure. Who has influence over critical decisions and where mistakes could create major setbacks? For example, mentoring a sponsor on the importance of change impact analysis protects against hasty scope expansions. Mentoring a vendor lead on handoff protocols reduces rework. On the exam, correct answers emphasize prioritizing high-leverage stakeholders for mentoring. Assessing readiness is also important. Some stakeholders may lack time or motivation, making mentoring impractical. Others may already possess strong judgment in one area but need guidance in another. Project managers should evaluate knowledge, availability, and openness before committing. Goals and boundaries for mentoring must be clear. This is not an open-ended relationship, but one tied to project outcomes. For example, a product owner may agree to focus on refining backlog ordering skills over the next few sprints. On the exam, distractor answers often confuse mentoring with indefinite support. Correct answers emphasize goals, structure, and alignment to delivery. Mentoring is not about helping everyone equally, but about directing effort where it creates the most value. A stakeholder with high influence but low project maturity is a prime candidate. Conversely, mentoring a stakeholder who has minimal involvement is not an effective use of time. This prioritization ensures that the project manager's energy supports decisions that truly affect outcomes. Clear boundaries also protect against scope creep. Mentoring cannot become a substitute for training or coaching unless explicitly agreed. On the exam, Answers that highlight selective, outcome-focused mentoring usually align with PMI's intent. Several principles and models guide stakeholder mentoring. One widely used model is GROW: goal, reality, options, and will. Conversations begin with clarifying goals, then examining the current reality, exploring options, and finally agreeing on what will be done. Another principle is show, think aloud, then fade. The project manager first models how a decision is made, then narrates thought processes while involving the stakeholder, and finally steps back to let them decide independently. Ethical anchors also matter. Fairness, honesty, and respect prevent favoritism or manipulation. Confidentiality is important, but must respect organizational documentation requirements. Ethics create trust in mentoring relationships. For example, favoritism mentoring one stakeholder while ignoring others with equal needs erodes credibility. Honesty about project constraints is essential, even if it disappoints the mentee. Confidentiality should be respected for private discussions, but project agreements must still be documented for transparency. Balancing these considerations keeps mentoring aligned with PMI's Code of Ethics. On the exam, distractors often involve breaching neutrality or allowing mentoring to replace governance. Correct answers emphasize integrity, transparency, and accountability, while still fostering growth. The process of mentoring begins with agreeing on outcomes and cadence. Stakeholders must understand what they are being mentored on and why. Sessions should be tied to real project decisions, not abstract lectures. For example, when a sponsor faces a change request, the project manager can guide them through impact analysis, then debrief what was learned. Providing job aids, such as checklists, reinforces learning. Tracking outcomes, such as improved backlog clarity or faster approvals, demonstrates progress. Mentoring scope should be revisited as needs change, preventing it from becoming stale or irrelevant. On the exam, answers that stress structure and adaptability are often correct. Using real project decisions as practice moments makes mentoring relevant. Instead of hypothetical cases, stakeholders learn in the context of actual choices they must make. A project manager can say, "Let's analyze this risk together," and then you decide which response to adopt. Debriefing afterward ensures lessons stick. Over time, stakeholders gain confidence in making similar decisions independently. The PMP exam favors this approach, as it reflects PMI's belief that learning embedded in real work is more impactful than abstract instruction alone. Job aids are powerful reinforcements. Checklists, decision matrices, and cheat sheets provide quick references stakeholders can use even when the project manager is not present. For example, a sponsor one-pager might summarize roles, decision rights, and escalation paths. A product owner might receive a backlog prioritization guide. These aids reduce dependency on the project manager and institutionalize learning. On the exam, correct answers often involve providing tools or references that support independence, not requiring the project manager to remain hands-on indefinitely. Artifacts play a key role in mentoring. Acceptance criteria templates, risk response playcards, and change control guides all provide structure for better decisions. By linking stakeholders to single sources of truth, such as policies or decision logs, project managers ensure mentoring aligns with governance. This prevents private conversations from becoming back-channel commitments. On the exam, correct answers emphasize mentoring that strengthens artifact usage and governance visibility rather than bypassing them. PMI consistently rewards approaches that combine learning with compliance. Providing stakeholders with clear artifacts and aids also creates a shared vocabulary. Instead of debating in vague terms, participants can use templates, criteria, and matrices to guide discussion. For example, mentoring a product owner to use backlog ordering criteria reduces conflict because priorities become explicit and testable. Mentoring a sponsor to reference escalation policy avoids confusion about when decisions must move upward. On the exam, correct answers highlight the value of integrating aids and artifacts into mentoring, reinforcing PMI's philosophy that project maturity grows through shared tools and practices. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Mentoring takes on different forms depending on the delivery approach. In agile projects, mentoring often centers on product owners who must make frequent prioritization decisions. A project manager may guide them on writing clear acceptance criteria, ordering backlog items effectively, or engaging stakeholders during reviews. In predictive projects, mentoring is often directed toward sponsors, who must understand governance, baselines, and change processes. They may need help recognizing why impact analysis protects long-term value. In hybrid environments, mentoring bridges cadence-based decisions with phase approvals. In all cases, the project manager ensures mentoring is visible without becoming a bottleneck, empowering stakeholders while preserving governance. On the exam, correct answers usually stress role-appropriate mentoring aligned to delivery mode. In agile settings, mentoring a product owner might involve modeling how to turn vague requests into user stories with clear acceptance criteria. Over time, the product owner learns to apply consistent ordering logic, balancing business value, risk, and dependencies. In predictive contexts, mentoring a sponsor might involve guiding them through the formal change control process, showing how skipping analysis leads to rework and cost overruns. Hybrid contexts require flexibility, helping a sponsor respect approvals while enabling backlog-driven decisions to keep flow moving. The PMP exam often highlights these nuances. The correct answer usually reflects mentoring tailored to context rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. Boundaries and ethics form the guardrails of mentoring. A project manager must remember that mentoring does not mean becoming a proxy decision-maker. Stakeholders retain accountability for their roles. The project manager guides but does not take over. Another boundary is avoiding back-channel commitments. Mentoring must support transparent governance, not create hidden agreements. Confidentiality matters, but project decisions must remain documented in official artifacts. Conflicts of interest may also arise, such as mentoring one vendor lead more deeply than another. The PMP exam often embeds traps where the project manager oversteps, and the correct answer emphasizes protecting ethics and accountability. Mentoring also requires awareness of political dynamics. Supporting one stakeholder should not alienate another. Neutrality and fairness must be maintained, or credibility is lost. For example, coaching a sponsor to respect governance must not be perceived as undermining their authority, but as strengthening the organization's maturity. Escalation should occur only when mentoring cannot mitigate risk. For instance, when a stakeholder repeatedly disregards governance despite guidance. On the exam, correct answers often balance firmness with fairness, showing that mentoring supports governance without becoming partisan or political maneuvering. Consider a scenario where a sponsor urges the team to skip impact analysis for a change request, insisting it is a one-time exception. The project manager has options. Agree in order to maintain the relationship, refuse bluntly without context. Mentor the sponsor on change policy by showing examples of past negative impacts while proposing an expedited analysis, or escalate immediately. The best action is to mentor. Explain why impact analysis matters, propose a fast-track method, and then decide together. On the exam, correct answers typically avoid immediate escalation or blind compliance. PMI emphasizes mentoring with policy and data, not shortcuts. In agile contexts, the equivalent scenario may involve a product owner pushing to insert a backlog item mid-sprint without respecting agreed service classes or backlog policies. The project manager can mentor by explaining the policy, showing how mid-sprint changes disrupt flow, and guiding the product owner to reprioritize in the backlog for the next sprint. This preserves cadence while respecting their authority. On the exam, agile clues like backlog item or mid-sprint point toward mentoring stakeholders on backlog policies and definitions of ready or done. Correct answers focus on enabling better decisions, not on imposing unilateral control. Exam pitfalls around mentoring often involve doing the stakeholder's job. For example, writing backlog items on behalf of the product owner or approving changes in place of the sponsor. These actions cross the boundary from mentoring into substitution. Another pitfall is allowing mentoring sessions to bypass governance, such as agreeing informally to scope changes without documentation. Favoritism: mentoring one stakeholder while neglecting others with equal influence erodes neutrality. Finally, mentoring without evidence of improved outcomes is ineffective. PMI expects mentoring to lead to better decisions, not just conversations. On the exam, distractors often reflect these pitfalls. The correct answer emphasizes enabling independence, maintaining governance, and showing impact. Doing the stakeholder's job is perhaps the most common pitfall. It may feel efficient in the moment, but it undermines accountability and creates dependency. The project manager must resist this temptation. Instead, they should guide stakeholders to use artifacts, matrices, policies, templates, so decisions remain in the right hands. Allowing mentoring to replace governance is another trap. Mentoring should strengthen compliance, not provide a back door around it. On the exam, the correct answer usually emphasizes boundaries. The project manager facilitates learning, but does not replace role responsibilities or governance processes. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.